Well, hello, I'm Judy Dodge, your host for Coffee with the Commissioners. And we have a great half hour today, and I'm going to introduce our two gentlemen here that's going to talk about reentry programs. So Sean Mitchell, you're a returning citizen coordinator with Sinclair Community College. That's Sean. Yep. And now Sterling Titus, your reentry program coordinator with Montgomery County Office of Reentry. Yes. So that's a long, long title. So welcome, and I know I have some great questions, and I think we're going to get into the meat of this. So the first one is, can you start by telling our listeners, our viewers, us about the Reentry Housing Subcommittee?
Absolutely.
And that would be Sean.
Yeah, I'll jump in and go ahead and start here with the subcommittee. Is one of 6 unique committees, subcommittees, as part of the Reentry Council. The Reentry Council is a kind of offshoot of the Office of Reentry here in Montgomery County. That was started a long time ago by Debbie Lieberman and
Judge Walter Rice.
Yep.
And then 2004.
2004, yeah. And look at us now.
Look at us now.
Yeah, it's really been a great experience to get involved, because what the subcommittee, we work specifically around reducing barriers to housing. All the other subcommittees have a different task and focus, but ours is reducing barriers and advocating for housing. We have a lot of different ways that we do that, but the real goal is to really make sure that we're advocating for individuals and having collaborations with housing providers as well.
Oh, good. And I know we're going to talk more about that as well as some other things. Now, Sterling, I think your question is going to be, did you talk about the purpose of the Housing Committee?
You know what? I didn't discuss
Okay,
the
good.
purpose
All right.
directly,
I just saw it. Don't forget that. So,
absolutely.
Go.
Yeah. So the purpose of the Housing Subcommittee is, their mission statement, if you will, is directly to provide and enhance safe, affordable housing opportunities for restored citizens and individuals preparing to return home or living in Montgomery County following incarceration or other involvement in the justice system. So again, as we talked about, our main focus is within Montgomery County. How are we taking folks that are getting released? 95% of people that are incarcerated are released. And in Ohio, we see a little over 18,000 people each year released. Wow. Those folks are coming back to our community. Yeah. We want to create resources and support so that transition is a lot easier.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And, I go, when they first come to our reentry programs, it's about a month, and you can just tell when you see them that, wow, I'm so grateful to be out and to be actually going through a program that's going to get me back into the community. And it's always a good thing to go and just say hi to them and, welcome, and we're here to help you. And then the graduation, I always get a kick out of seeing them again because they've completely changed. They've got a new suit on or a new outfit on, and they're beaming from ear to ear. So it's just a wonderful program. And I know it started with Judge Walter Rice and Debbie Lieberman. They were committed to this in 2004, and it took a couple years to get it started. And now look at it now. We always used to have a very high, what's the word I'm looking for? Recidivism rate. And now it's just way, way, way down. And that's what you want. These people want to come back to their families, and they want to participate in things. So I think this is great. Thank you. So let's move on, and let's tell us a little about what we were just talking about, the Reentry Career Alliance Academy, because this is what they go through.
Okay,
4 weeks, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
And the academy itself was actually developed in 2015 as a tool and a foundational piece for our returning citizens to come to something formally structured. It's a 4-week career and job readiness curriculum coordinated and facilitated by our staff of 8, along with unique collaboration with volunteers and partners and nonprofit. And we serve the needs of individuals with criminal history barriers to help them in transforming obstacles into opportunities. I had the pleasure of being, or the honor rather, of being on the original task force back in 2004, along with Debbie Lieberman and Judge Rice, as one of the Reentry Caucus co-chairs, returning citizen co-chairs. And over the years since then, I've heard the vernacular change considerably about how we are even using words to describe someone who is justice involved. A lot of these terms weren't even used. Back in the day, you were just an ex-convict and a convicted felon. So our program also offers with topics like with housing, reentry planning, offender workforce development and retention. The financial literacy piece is huge. It's like 3 of our workshops, and that's conducted by the Day Air Credit Union. They do a great, phenomenal job with that. I mean, it's really incredible. And they offer everyone an opportunity to actually do banking as opposed to getting their paychecks on a card where they have to pay to get their money, that kind of thing. So personal, family, social responsibility, behavioral health, health care, and behavioral management.
Wow. And that's 4 weeks, 4-week course?
3.5 technically, but it is 4 weeks. But by the time the 4th week, we get to graduation like we did today.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, now, let's say you have 20 how many, I should say this, how many start out approximately? Is it 10, 20, 30, 40, or just does it vary?
Or like attrition?
No, just to start out the program, that want to come and start the program.
Yeah, when they come in, our attrition rate's been actually kicked up quite a bit. We've been averaging 20 per cohort.
Okay.
And I think someone even mentioned it today that this is going to probably be our banner year as far as graduates making it to the finish line.
Okay.
And the numbers, because they actually stick and stay. There used to be the retention level might have been maybe 20% at one time, 25%.
Okay.
I think we're probably down to between 5 and 10%.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
Doing pretty good.
So they just don't come to one and go, I don't need this,
Right.
and then they leave.
They're very few. And we're seeing less and less of that, yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, they should realize then the importance of this. And because when I come in and speak to them at the very beginning, they're like, where am I and what am I doing here? But they always are very pleasant, and I can tell they're ready to get involved into.
Well, you're coming actually as and I try to prepare them for that, but you're coming and introducing has a huge impact on the fact that they know they're supported.
Okay.
On a level.
I always tell them that,
On a level that a lot of counties and a lot of cities just don't do or don't have the capacity to do.
Yeah.
So that's really great when you come.
Yeah. How many other counties in Ohio do you have any idea that actually have a reentry program similar to ours? Have you ever heard?
Probably just the bigger cities.
Just the bigger
Columbus,
ones. Okay.
Cincinnati, Cleveland, Toledo is for the city of that size does not have as robust of a reentry program as I would have thought. But Montgomery County is considered the leader.
Yeah. Okay.
In the state.
Okay. Well, it helps when a federal judge wants to move something like this forward.
Absolutely.
Get a little more attention than just
Absolutely.
Joe Smith down the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, the programs that that I've witnessed have just been fantastic. And okay, so let's go into Sean. It's your turn. Can you share a little bit about the certificate of qualification for housing, such as the Ready to Rent program?
Absolutely. So first off, let me explain. So we refer to them as the CQE or CAE. They're 2 different things, and what they stand for is a Certificate for Qualification for Employability and Certificate of Achievement in Employability. They're pretty much the same thing, but ultimately what they do is Ohio is unique in having these to help with individuals that may have records that may be difficult for expungement or record sealing, and it's an opportunity for someone to say, hey, this is not the person that is on paper that walked through those gates originally. What it is the Ohio really kind of listened to some of those barriers, and specifically they went to employers and said, what do you need to hire folks that may be system impacted? An employer said, well, we're worried about some of the risks. What if we hire somebody and they steal something from someone else? And what they found is, let's create this certificate that takes some of that civil liability off of the employer. So it pulls away some of the civil liability and negligence. The other thing is, people coming out of incarceration, there are over 40,000 collateral barriers that they have to get over, including things like professional certifications. And so a good example, I want to be a real estate agent. Well, I have to go through and get a certification from that board, a licensure. Well, to get that, that's a place where having that CQE, it now forces that licensing board to do an independent review. Doesn't force them to say yes, but it forces them to do an independent review and say, hey, we need to look at this person fully and what all they've accomplished since then, not just a tick on a box that I have that background. So the CQH was just enacted and put into back in fall a year ago, which does the same thing as the employment, but now for housing providers. So now if you go to someone who's going to rent to a system impacted person and they're saying, well, I'm worried about the liabilities, what if, they steal from a neighbor or something, that landlord would be now not liable for any type of civil suits.
Okay.
So that's where the CQH comes in. Ready to rent specifically is a requirement for folks that might be incarcerated who are looking to get the CQH. It's a requirement that they go through this program. I would personally argue it's probably a requirement for everyone, including maybe even some of us if we're in spaces of needing to rent, because it's a 6 session, it's 12 hours total, really diving deep into that financial literacy, diving deep into where do you want to live, transportation for housing, or towards employment, and then also doing some of those deep dives as well of what happens when I'm ready to move out. What do I have to look for in a lease agreement? Can I actually afford this place?
Wow. Okay. And so most of them, when they come back, they want to stay in Montgomery County?
For folks that we see our folks go all over the state.
Okay.
But I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm a little biased, but Montgomery County does have the best resources. Speaking of the Office of Reentry and the RCAA program, we do have the best resources for folks. So we see a lot of folks wanting to come to our community.
Okay. Okay, good. Then I'm thinking, I know that the Dayton Municipal Clerk of Courts usually will have a couple times a year where if you have you have to get your license renewed or pay off the whatever, he'll have a week or so if you can come in and work with them as far as paying it off so you can get that debt out. Yeah. So and that's got to be a help for some of these individuals coming out that they need that driver's license again to get back to work.
The driver's license, and I know Dayton specifically has been pushing a eviction record sealing and expungement, which again, for a housing side, is really important because sometimes eviction status can be a larger red flag than even your, system impact, your justice background.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Are you pretty successful in getting basically everybody into a rental or so that they can have someplace decent to live and start their life again? I mean, is that pretty, or do you have kind of a waiting list that maybe in another 6 months we can have a place for you?
Well, in that regard, see, we don't provide housing with a connection to the landlords. Okay. And with a direction to the landlords who we have worked with that to kind of mitigate the fact that the person with a justice involvement and remove that stigma with them, so we educate the landlords as much as possible. And but capacity is at an all-time high right now, even without the fact of a justice background. The housing market in Dayton right now is just very tight, even for for someone who's just looking for a place, and it's very expensive. So a lot of folks are priced out of your regular housing. So there's some alternatives that are coming up, kind of like in the terms of a not a group home, but It would be like a rooming house where there's shared space,
Okay.
and it's a lot more affordable. And so we're seeing an uptick in that, and the places are, if they're well run, it's a good starting point for someone who may just be beginning their job, and they haven't built up, financial resources yet. And we also provide some financial assistance in the way of our move-in assistance to our participants.
Okay.
And the budget constraints have forced us to take it back down to $250. It used to be $500, but it is $250 that they can apply towards either rent, deposit, or even utilities. If
Yeah.
they owe some back utilities, they can apply it in that manner. So it's still helpful. Every dollar helps at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
Also, just to add, and I don't know, Sterling, if you've seen this as well, but the field of reentry work over the last 7 years has shifted so much that a lot of reentry programs focus so much on get a job, get a job, get a job. Here's resume building. Here's how you
Yeah,
do interview
yeah.
work. But now the number one barrier for folks getting released from incarceration is housing and transportation tied with that.
Yeah.
And the certain offenses are more challenging because there's a lot of restrictions involved with those offenses. So we have to be very, very cautious about how we navigate that. And when we point someone in a direction, we don't want them getting frustrated, saying, "Hey, you told me I could go over here, but it doesn't fit my circumstances." So we filter through that ourselves and make certain that if we make a direct referral to a landlord, or if we suggest they go somewhere, that it is someone that's going to view this person's circumstances in a favorable manner, regardless of what's going on with them, and that they can accommodate them if they have the ability to pay
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. And of course, they're also competing with individuals that are homeless just in the shelters.
Mhm.
I've toured the men's shelter and the women's shelter, and that's a heartbreak right there, especially the women with children. And, and so they're looking obviously for a little bigger place than
Absolutely.
everybody, but everybody's looking for something. And I have heard this statistic, and I don't know how true it is, but there's only 40 places to rent for every 100 people. So I don't know how, but I'm sure when you're involved in this and looking, you're thinking, oh, that's pretty true, because, there is a waiting list.
Yes,
And it's just sad.
it is, and it's a huge challenge, but it's also presenting some opportunities because I've also heard of some entrepreneurs who are looking to structure like the little small houses, one-bedroom homes, and start building those because they're affordable to build, and they can accommodate a lot more people, in this type of community. There's a lot of land out here right now that's just sitting there that could be developed for something like that. Because it's just a lot, and they don't even have to go that far. These lots had houses on them at one time. So they've already got a basic infrastructure for housing if someone would just, start looking at it in a manner of, well, it's over here. And I see, fortunately, they are the Metropolitan Housing Authority, which GDR. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I know, GPD.
Yeah, they changed their name. I used to
Something
call
like
them. Yeah, I called them something else back in the day. But they are, renovating, like they're tearing down the Bass, and rebuilding that. That's going to be phenomenal when that's done. So a lot more of that is needed. A lot more of that I see it occurring, and hopefully it will balance it out and take that number down because that is a tragic number.
Yeah, and I know Land Bank here
Right.
in Montgomery County, they've gotten money for 40 homes, so, smaller and affordable. So in 2 different parts of Dayton. So I think that's going to be great probably this spring.
That's
So
awesome.
I think that plays into a lot of what's really nice about the subcommittee as well, that we do have representatives from the land bank and county court and
Yeah.
a lot of these other providers, the housing providers in the recovery space or some of these shared units. So it's really nice to have those voices there because you also know those public dollars and supports are going to places where that need is being filled. And it really helps to have all those voices in one place.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's been really
Absolutely.
nice, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I know we've got statements, but I just had a couple other questions, and that is, in my mind when I'm talking to you, I'm thinking men, but what about the ladies that come in? And is that a whole different ball game that you're talking about? Because if they have children, and not so much the housing, just the whole process.
Well, our Women in Reentry subcommittee, which is one of the 6, is there for that purpose because women do have unique needs that most men don't.
Right.
Most women were the primary caregivers for their families prior to being incarcerated. Most of the women were the head of the household, and they've been separated from their children, and the children might be in foster care. There might be some substance use issues, but in the meantime, most of the women that come through our program are trying to get their families intact.
Yeah.
Reunification as much as possible.
Yeah.
Especially if they have young children.
Yeah.
That's always a tragedy and a challenge.
Yeah. Because I've seen them when I come to the first meeting and then at the graduation, and the women are just, you can just tell they're so happy.
Well, a lot more are actually coming through our program, and I attribute that to one of our program coordinators who is female, January, and since she's been on board, because before the women might come, but the attrition rate for women was a lot higher.
Good.
And that's leveled out considerably. And we're just looking to whatever the magic sauce is with that is working.
Yeah. Well, she's something, January. She spoke at graduate at Sinclair.
Absolutely.
And just hit it out of the park.
Yes, she did.
So I'm just tickled for her. Now, I think we're winding down here. I guess another question I have is, what about all these subcommittees? Do you need volunteers for some of these? Okay, you want to say what they are?
All the time. So we have of course, the one we're here for, the housing subcommittee. There's the cafe subcommittee, which is what's that acronym?
Community and family engagement.
Community and family engagement, and that there's the women in reentry. We also have the employment, and we have legal subcommittees. And
Okay.
So,
Now, if one of our listeners wants to, or viewers wants to help, who can they contact? And how do they do
to our
that?
volunteer coordinator, Ms. Paige Rogolinsky. I'm about to murder her name again. Paige Rogolinsky is our volunteer coordinator, and she will take the application, screen, and there's an approval process.
Okay.
But it's fairly fast, and I've never really seen anybody get turned down. That's willing to take their time to help us, and we try to see where they're going to fit.
Sure.
What is it? Sure. What is their gift? And how can it be applied to how we do things?
Okay. And her number is 937-496-7189. That's 937-496-7189, and it's Paige Rogolinsky.
Correct.
Okay, good. I got that. Whoa.
Yes,
Okay.
you did.
Okay, I think we're about out of time. And was there anything else you had to say for the next 30 seconds?
Well, if someone is interested in engaging directly, then they can call me at my number, which is 937-212-7726. That is my cell. It's the best way to reach me. And then I will evaluate their circumstances from that point and see how we can help.
Good. Again, this is Judy Dodge, your host for Coffee with the Commissioners. Appreciate you joining us today, and I think it was a very interesting time, and I appreciate you two coming and being involved and all the work that you do for the reentry program. So thanks again, and everybody have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.